myself going into the theater, waiting for this girl boss agenda movie, waiting for cringe dialogue, millennial writing, um, kind of a disservice of Superman. And I think one of the big criticisms about Kara in this movie is that she is a little bit too different than other versions of Supergirl. And I think that Smallville has given us brain rot, where the comparisons to other versions, we've been brainwashed into thinking that we're supposed to simp for Supergirl, that Supergirl is supposed to be hot. I don't think that Milly Alcock is unattractive, but talking about her looks in the context of a movie is a dumb criticism. It just is. Um, Wanting her to look like Sydney Sweeney, complaining why she has earrings. These are non-starter arguments, and they don't have anything to do with the structure of this movie as a movie. And it just kind of convinced me that maybe the internet is dead inside. Hey guys, it's Sam. Welcome back to the channel. On this channel, we cover single player gaming, interviews, and superhero lore, which is why today I wanted to talk about Supergirl. If you would like to see the written version, you can find it in the uh, description down below over on Substack. But I want to talk about this movie and about how there seems to be a certain amount of bias going in both directions when it comes to this movie, but more so on the idea that this movie is somehow the worst thing ever made, that it's this huge flop, that it's a horrible, unwatchable superhero movie. And
kind of are they gonna serve up this time? And I realized that I went into Superman with that perspective. I went dressed as Wonder Woman, but I still was like, this is gonna be ass.
I once drank a shot glass full of chili sauce for a bet on a night out, and the resulting explosive ejection of liquid fire from my body the next morning was enough to have me praying to the gods of chaos themselves, anything to release me from the torment. But you know what? That was still more fun than watching Supergirl, partly because I won the bet, so at least I made some money out of it, but mostly because at least it was over quickly.
and I just don't think that's the case. Yes, I am wearing the Supergirl shirt. Spoiler, I like this movie. I like this movie as a Superman universe mythos movie, as a new take on Supergirl. And I think that ultimately it's being overhated, overanalyzed. And I've seen all of these videos that the James Gunn universe is over, that this is, horrendous. I feel like this is a good movie. This is an entertaining movie.
Hi there.
When I got to the David Cornsmith cameo in this movie, I began to think about how this movie has had this very strange internet hate train ever since the trailers came out. There are these weird expectations placed upon this movie. And bear in mind, I really like the James Gunn Superman 2025 movie. And maybe you're hearing that and you're going, boo, not Cavill, or boo, I didn't like it. It's too James Gunnish, you know. And I feel like those are valid criticisms. And if you have issues with the story, the pacing of this movie, I get that. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But I don't think the first trailer does a very good job of setting up with what the movie is going to be. And it doesn't really tell you what the movie is going to be. And at least not in a way that really communicates to you what the movie is about. And it's a teaser trailer, okay? So you can make the argument that it doesn't need to have a ton of information letting you know what the issue is, okay? By the time we got to the third trailer, I was a little bit more on board with Kara's journey. By the time that those trailers rolled around, I had read the graphic novel for the very excellent Woman of Tomorrow, run by Tom King, which that the movie is somewhat loosely based on, although we'll get to that in a second too. Complaining why she has earrings. These are non-starter arguments, and they don't have anything to do with the structure of this movie as a movie. And it just kind of convinced me that maybe the internet is dead inside. Maybe overhated is our new default position, but it's not going to be mine. So I go into this movie expecting all of those things. And about halfway through the movie, had- I I turn over to or I lean over to the group of friends that I was seeing the movie with, and I said, "Hey, I'm actually enjoying this movie a lot more than I thought I was going to." And on top of that, I think that this is a good superhero movie. I think this is a good Supergirl movie. Um, one of the problems with her origin or her version of the character that a lot of people have pointed out is that she is too harsh. She's too disconnected. She's not enough like Clark. And I'm here to tell you that Kara isn't Clark, and that's okay. Um, a lot of people will tell you that, or some people that I read online, specifically the people who were complaining about the whole earrings thing, even though they would bring up the Supergirl TV show, even though in that show she was also wearing earrings, which is a weird hill to die on. Um, and I was a fan of the TV series, even though like a lot of people, I thought, oh, it's really weird that we're getting a Supergirl movie before we're getting a or a Supergirl show, but before we're getting a Superman show. Um, but as much as I enjoy that movie, or excuse me, as much as I enjoy that show, that version of Kara from the CW TV series, she's a little too much like Clark for my taste. She's sweet and kind, and she's sort of a dork, and her alter ego is also a journalist. So it's a little bit strange to me that she was basically this not a carbon copy of Clark, but had maybe a little bit too many similarities to him. Um, and but this Kara in Supergirl 2026, Supergirl James Gunn edition, even though this movie is not written or directed by James Gunn, but you know, in this DCEU Supergirl, this Kara is different. Unlike the TV show version and a lot of the other versions, Kara wasn't sent to Earth to protect or look after her cousin. If anything, Clark seeks her out, and he is just happy to have family. Um, for this Kara, Krypton is not some distant memory preserved in a hologram or an urban legend to long for, like it is for Clark. It is a world that she was violently ripped away from. There's a big difference between having a vague memory of losing your parents, but not it being a real memory, to literally seeing your whole family die and then being sent away, um, to protect your legacy, not because of some grander purpose, but because if you stay, you'll die too. And this distinction is important. Clark grew up on Earth surrounded by people who loved him. Kara is haunted by the ghosts of all that she lost. Her pain is not abstract, and neither is her anger. That makes her rougher around the edges than Clark, but it also makes the contrast between them much more interesting. Now, I think that there are going to be a lot of people who do have some solid criticisms of this movie. That the story seems a little bit too simple. That um, Kara pursuing this villain to save Crypto feels a little flat. Um, but it doesn't feel flat to me. Crypto is her only connection to her planet, literally the only thing. Clark, yeah, he's got the fortress. He's got all of these artifacts and things that he can look at. But he also is surrounded by people who love him, who, even in his moment of loneliness, can look around and say, hey, you know what? Most people love me. That's why it was such a betrayal in Superman 2025 when everyone suddenly turned on him. It was a heel turn. It was a hey, I was there for you, and now because of this one thing, you're gonna drop me. Kara, on the other hand, is a hot mess, and she looks like it. If you compare her how she looks in this movie to say her cameo in Superman, she looks in Superman she's wearing a lot more makeup. Her hair is normal-ish. Um, and I think that that is reflective of her current emotional state. She feels like she's made peace with what she has gone through, and now she's ready to move forward. If you go to the movie, she's a hot mess and she looks like it. She's got messy hair. She kind of is wearing like the same ratty coat and t-shirt almost the whole time. Um, and what follows for her is a story about revenge, a story about survival's guilt, a story about the price of revenge. In the movie, Cora talks about how Clark's age, even though she is younger than him, is younger than her because of the he doesn't have the weight that has been done to his soul. Clark not only has a whole society of people who, for the most part, love him, he has a woman in his life who loves him, who loves this version of him, even though she doesn't really understand who he is or where he comes from for the most part. Um, Kara, on the other hand, warns to Ruthie as she shows up in the movie when Kara is in the beginning of her adorable drunken stupor that the cost of revenge is high, that you don't want to go down this path. Um, that once you cross that line, you can't go back. I think one of the weaknesses of the film is that it doesn't lean too heavily into the fantasy elements of the film. I think it does a good job of balancing the sci-fi stuff. Kara being on the space bus, her having her own ship, her having different ways that she interacts with her powers based on what sun she's at. I like all of those things. But a lot of the fantasy elements are kind of subdued, but I don't know if there would have been a convincing way on how to portray that in a film, because I feel like this is not just some one and done movie with her. I think we're gonna keep seeing this character. Um, but other than Ruthie kind of going after this villain and Kara going after this villain, that's kind of where the comparisons to the graphic novel end. And I think that's to its detriment. Uh, but it also doesn't make it horrendously unwatchable. It just doesn't. Um, after Crypto is injured, Kara, of course, goes full scorched earth trying to get her dog back. And if you don't understand the concept of going after someone who hurt your dog, then I guess you don't have a dog. So for this next section, I do want to talk briefly about the ending of the movie and how the ending of the movie kind of uh, takes a huge departure from the graphic novel. So from this moment on, spoilers about the ending of this movie, and also spoilers for The Woman of Tomorrow, if you haven't read the graphic novel yet. Um, Even after all of Kara's warnings about the cost of revenge, Ruthie is still determined to kill Krem for the murder of her family. In Woman of Tomorrow, she does end up confronting him, albeit decades later. but ultimately spares his life. But the film takes a different path. Kara kills Krim herself. Is it to spare Ruthie from being killed? Maybe. It is it to not put this child down a path of violence that is probably never going to end? Also, maybe. But it is a stark reminder of the darkness that still exists inside Kara. She understands the cost of revenge because she spent much of her life living, being choked by all of that anger and grief. She's a hero living in isolation. She is not just searching for her purpose. She is trying to convince herself that she deserves one in the first place. At the end of the day, Supergirl has some pretty universal themes, none of which I think are particularly woke. It's a broken and messy film, just like its central character, but it's in the end one that eventually finds its footing, just like Kara. Instead of immediately disregarding this movie because of preformed expectations, try not to go into something hating something as your default. Not because it's good or bad, but because it didn't play out in your mind how you wanted it to. Those of us who were looking forward to this movie are probably going to love it. Those of us who were unsure and saw some early problems that we might disagree with probably are not going to like this movie. And if you're going into this movie hating it and wondering why it even exists, then um you probably were never going to like it. The internet should could learn something from Kara. Let go of your trauma and allow yourself to enjoy things again. Once again, I am Sam from Sam and Sam DeLong Games. Feel free to leave a comment in the video below about Supergirl, about James Gunn, about the DCEU, about this movie, um, about my shirt. And I'll see you guys on the next one.